Gehenna. Controlling the wrath was getting harder, especially since the attack on the university when Alex had attempted to fend off Joseph.
And failed admirably.
The power had come in useful on many occasions, but the hellfire within him was by no means welcome.
Beginning to see why Felix is so hesitant to use it.
Alex could feel his mind changing the more he allowed Eros in, which was far scarier than any of the monsters he'd fought so far in this nightmare. To prevent losing himself any further, he decided the wrath was only to be used in emergencies. Charging behind Galinthia and Fabian through a bizarre, dark city, he was forced to put that apprehension aside and use the power simply to keep up.
Guess everything we do from here on out is an emergency.
Thankfully, the Midolians were kind enough not to run off and leave him in the dust, as Mara had. Not that they didn't push a few dozen yards ahead to help pull him along. Even with the added strain, Alex felt confident he was on top of the wrath.
Might even be getting the hang of it. Who knows?
The trip to Trivium City was a chaotic one. Amid the fight with the Archfiend in the Montana forest,
Terrifying, FYI.
the unearthed creatures, demon and Midolian alike, had suddenly ceased fighting. Jolted all at once, they looked at the ground in unison. Alex had been wrestling with a large fiend at the time, which gave up its fight at the drop of a hat, understandably confusing the teacher. Looking in the same direction as everyone else, he expected something huge and abysmal to reach out of the ground and start eating people. But it didn't.
Turned out, everyone was looking at the Earth's core, where Trivium is, on a higher frequency. At least, I think that's what he said.
Fabian had explained it briefly upon their arrival on the small planet, though Alex didn't absorb much, nodding along anyhow. When the fight in the woods was over, many of the demons simply ran, and Mara got to work dismantling the few remaining. Once there were none left alive to cause trouble, she shifted away without another word, leaving the others behind, while wearing a look on her face that was close to torment. Expecting Galinthia to say something morose, or Fabian to make a weary comment, Alex was surprised when neither said anything, leading him to believe whatever was triggering their unearthed senses was no delicate matter. Before leaving the wintry scene, he caught a glimpse of Casey huddled on the porch of the cabin with Lee. Leaving them behind felt wrong in every way, but humans couldn't survive in higher frequency whatevers, at least according to Isaiah. The chances of Alex and Bennett surviving were only slightly higher because of the Eve planted inside of them.
Which relieves me only a little.
Much of Alex wanted to stay behind with Casey.
Just feel a little safer around her. Can't explain why.
And after all, what did he really have to do with any of this? He didn't belong on a higher plane fighting holy wars. He didn't even belong in Montana. Yet without a chance to catch his breath, it was off to the races. Galinthia took Alex by the shoulder and shifted them away. He and the Midolians landed, alive, if uneasy. The chase was on. Presently, they hustled past dead, unearthed shops and restaurants, as fast as Alex could muster, and the teacher noticed a resonance lingering in the air, like a planet-sized bell had been rung, and the waves, miles long, were continuing to roll over the town. Smells materialized, reminding him of a campfire made of rotten, damp wood, as a thin layer of white ash grew to blanket the ground. Galinthia's and Fabian's footprints were soon well defined in sheets like dry sleet. Alex couldn't help walking in their strides as a sobering sensation approached. Unyielding, suffocating, ancient, near to the still room in La Rose Noire. The air was soaked with it.
I can feel, rigid and suffocating. Gotta be rapture.
Turning a corner, the teacher found himself at the edge of a vast, open expanse, a half-mile square of destruction, reminding him of the videos he'd seen online of other countries post-tsunami or post-hurricane. Few foundations and fewer buildings stood near the central blast zone, where the layers of soot and haze grew deeper and darker until meeting with a long shape, like a black cloud stretching parallel with the horizon. Once they were nearer, the elongated silhouette revealed itself to be a crater, hundreds of yards across, the bottom of a mountainous sphere no more than 80 or 90 feet deep. Fabian and Galinthia hardly took notice of the hole in the ground, charging off to the right along the crater's rim. "Barker, come along!" Galinthia shouted.
Can't we stop for a second?
"Coming!" he called. The desolate scene was quiet, making Alex increasingly more paranoid as he chased the Medolians. Raised voices soon began to announce themselves. "Where were you?" Someone shouted as Alex zeroed in on a group of gathered figures. Galinthia and Fabian had already joined Isaiah, Mara, and Bennett near a gigantic block of stone that once might have been the cornerstone to a grand unearthed structure, now reduced to 12 feet square. All heads were low, with sullen faces. Surprisingly, Felix was off to the side, by himself, kneeling near the rim of the crater. A molten steam was rising from his person.
Look who decided to turn on their wrath. Then again, maybe he didn't.
The only person Alex couldn't find was Hannah, and judging by the hole in the ground and the fact that there were no signs of Joseph, he only had one guess as to what may have happened to the both of them.
Guess they took each other out. That's what spooked the others so bad. They felt the final moment.
No one acknowledged his arrival, which was fine. Alex didn't want to be a part of the heated discussion he'd walked into. Bennett was revealed to be the one shouting, stunning everyone present when he seized Isaiah by the jacket collar. "Bring her back!" "I can't," Isaiah replied, a rag doll in his hands. "You can't or won't?" Bennett demanded. Isaiah's once lively gray eyes were drooping, half open, fighting for cognizance. "Look at me. I'm barely here. Lying is pointless." "What don't you get?" Felix asked from his perch. "Leave it alone. You saw it yourself." "I didn't see anything. One second they were there, the next they weren't. Can someone just—" Bennett shook his head, flustered. "With all the crazy shit you people can do, there's nothing? I brought Al back after he took a fence post to the chest, and I've only had this shit for a few days. I've seen Celestials do some—" Felix roared back. "Do you see any Celestials here? Huh? Do you see a body to heal? There's nothing but dust, man. She got what she always wanted. A big finale." Alex didn't like seeing Felix like this.
An archfiend, sure, but he's helped me a lot.
Whether Felix knew it or not, Alex, who had never had so much as a soccer coach before he came along, saw him as a mentor. and it wasn't fun to see a guy he admired losing control. Though there was no denying how much Hannah meant to him. As somber as the moment was, Alex couldn't pin down how he felt. Hannah had never trusted him.
That was obvious.
And he had never figured out why.
Just assumed it was because I smell like an archfiend.
He'd been uneasy in her presence from the start, feeling as though whenever he turned around, she would be there, watching with her high beam stare. That aside, he was well aware she'd saved their asses on several occasions, and the thought of going on without her seemed daunting, if not impossible, especially if any more surprises were headed their way. Deep down, however, he was secretly relieved at the notion of Joseph being gone for good.
That means we're done. I get to go home, right? We did it. We did it.
He wanted to ask someone, just to double check, but it seemed inappropriate at the moment. Tell me what happened then. Bennett wasn't shouting anymore, yet had never sounded more upset. That's something I would also like to know, Mara said, her arms folded tight, as though bottling her own volatile rage. Make it quick. Emergency and disaster teams will already be on their way. Isaiah spoke simply. Joseph did it. Collected the brothers. Then, well, Hannah happened. It's over. That can't be it. It can't. She wouldn't, Mara said with the rigidness of a prison guard. It's giving up. If you really knew her, you'd know that. I know, Isaiah interrupted with a groan, struggling to sit on a hunk of concrete. And yet, you know she would. She had to. And in doing so, became something we'll likely never see again. I couldn't even... He sighed. It was beautiful, if you can imagine. I can, Mara said. I imagine you watched the whole thing and did nothing. She, Isaiah, and Bennett went back and forth for another minute. Angry, though not necessarily with each other, while Alex hung back, happy the vitriol wasn't aimed his way for once. Looking around the circle, he found sunk-in, fatigued faces. The others had never appeared so unsettled. Outwardly, Fabian was the worst, brought to his knees, releasing waterfalls of tears. So many eateries, reduced to nothing! Galinthia gazed over the murky scene, giving her partner a comforting back rub. Fuck this idling and ball cradling. What's the next play? That's a big-ass hole, and this mess isn't going to explain itself. Personally, I'm not looking forward to the inquiries. Containment alone. Mara took charge. I say we immediately gather the leaders of Unearth and make a report. The Warden Sentry has the authority to call an emergency session. We can send a priority memo and... A session? To decide what exactly? Isaiah asked with a raised eyebrow. Repercussions. Finding out who is responsible for all this. Decide the humans' fates. Mara's face was tense, centered on her lips. Her eyes jittered uneasily for the first time in as long as Alex had known her. I know my fate. I'm going home, the teacher said. We had a deal. Isaiah gave a warm smile in return. Darn right, Al. Glad you could make it, by the way.
Not exactly an answer.
But it gave Alex a little hope. He noticed Mara toss him a hard glance before piling on a cold shoulder, though by now he didn't care.
Call me whatever you want. Give me mean looks. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm done. I'm out.
His mantra was finally coming true.
Just stay calm, and everything will be fine.
This is ridiculous. We know who's responsible,
Felix said, rising and joining the others. His skin was searing, and he smelled like singed cotton.
Neither of them is around to stand trial.
You know what I mean, Mara said to everyone. This will turn into paperwork. Lots of it. Paperwork wants names. Living names are preferred to dead ones. That's how this works. If we're not careful, this could get ugly fast.
It's not ugly now?
Isaiah rubbed his beard, nodding, but distracted. Yes, fine. We'll do it your way. But first, he faced the crater. We have to collect the stones. The others stayed in place. No one followed, sharing confused glances instead. Bennett was the first to speak. You joking? They were in Joseph's pocket. No way they survived the blast. Isaiah grunted with each step down the slope. And yet, they did. Now, please, don't bother offering the grunting old man in pain any help down the slope. No, he's fine. The group ignored Isaiah's moans, but followed anyway, walking in silence, seemingly out of respect for the dead. It was a great chance for Alex to catch his breath. For a moment there was no Eve, no fire, no unearth. He was just taking a stroll with regular folks through a bleak apocalypse. As they drew near the middle of the crater, the white and gray ash on the ground turned jet black. That's far enough, Isaiah said, 3 yards from a lumpy, dark mound. The others remained behind while he went on. After a quick swipe of his emerald-topped cane, the ash was tossed away, revealing the glistening black stones, dormant and quiet, just the way Alex liked them. Twice, Isaiah's hand slowly reached out, lingering above them, before pulling back.
What are you waiting for?
Galinthia asked. Looks like they're back asleep. Should be safe to handle, Fabian said.
No better place for them than with you, boss,
Galinthia added. Isaiah crossed his arms, as though studying a sculpture in an art museum. You know, I'm becoming convinced these are more than just rocks with some juice in them. Galinthia gave a sarcastic cough.
No shit! What other rocks contain a shade of Eve more volatile than wrath? Now, let's get the universe nukes out of public view before a crowd gathers, eh?
More than all that, it's as though they... Isaiah was staring, entranced, cringing, possibly betrayed by his thoughts. No, we need to find a way to destroy these without releasing their abyss into the cosmos. That may take time. If what you said about Hannah's attack is true,
and the stones are still unhurt, then what could we possibly do to destroy them?
Mara asked, taking a half step forward.
You said we're doing it my way, so the stones will be taken to Speaker Bannock. They're the evidence against Joseph.
I think the particulars can wait, Mara,
Isaiah said.
Joseph's dead.
I know he's dead,
she boomed back. As the conversation continued, Alex found his gaze drifting back to the pile of black ash.
A different material from the rest, and I feel something from it. It's hard to place.
Resting in the ash, the smallest stone, the one Joseph called Melu, seemed especially appealing, holding Alex's gaze, though he wasn't sure why.
It's the one I stole, the one I touched.
Alex's vision tightened around the stone, and the world around him became a fog. He allowed himself to fall away from the goings-on around him, calling it a rest in his mind. He then suddenly shook awake. There was screaming, but he knew it was only in his head. His thoughts had once again been commandeered by a swell of voices. He swore they were there, at least 3 or 4 of them, radiating from the pile, but none of the others present reacted in any way.
Just me? Great.
The sounds were raspy, angry, enormous in presence. Their words were impossible to make out. Only their murderous intent was clear, same as the horrors he'd heard in his psyche before the bull insignia appeared on his chest, if even more malignant.
And dark.
The new voices then stopped as abruptly as they'd started.
But they're not gone. I can still feel them.
The conversation around Alex had stopped as well. Bennett, Mara, and Isaiah were quiet, and all facing one direction, where a crunching, dragging sound was seeping out of the haze. A shadowed mystery figure approached, with one arm hung low, dragging a long blade skipping off the ground, spitting sparks. The Midolian Chloe came out of the mist, towing her left leg, soaked from head to toe, beaten, bruised, gritting her teeth, with a swollen, busted lip. No one moved at first, except Mara, who took a few frustrated steps forward, then seemed to catch herself.
You've got some nerve. I ought to fade you right now. What's stopping you?
Chloe barked back.
I'm in a mood. You better be coming to apologize, or turn yourself in,
Mara said, gripping her staff. Chloe halted a few feet out. Her bright gray eyes drifted over the lineup, blocking her path. Sneering, she spit at their feet.
Move!
Mara spun her staff and planted it in the ground.
Are you blind? It's over. Joseph and Hannah are gone. I know you feel it. Nothing is over. Not yet.
Chloe's eyes settled on Alex, sending an old-fashioned chill down his spine. Isaiah joined Mara by her side.
The Senate will put everything Joseph did on your shoulders. Let us try to make a case in your favor. Help us to help you.
Chloe gave a small laugh, laying out her contempt while brandishing her cutlass.
Let me be clear. I'm taking the brothers to Gehenna, and I'm ending this nightmare called life. Anyone who gets in my way will be dealt with. I already took down the old man once. I don't know how you survived it, but I can do it again.
You can't get past all of us, Mara snapped. Leave. Flee. We'll catch you later on. Or come quietly now. Save everyone the trouble. Maybe you'll only spend the rest of your life in a dread sling. Or maybe I'll be ordered to take your head off. Either way is fine with me. There are none among you I fear. Not even you, dear teacher, Chloe said with a wispy smirk. I'm much too fast, remember? That wasn't true even before you lost half your Malos. What happened? Get a little too close to the blast? Mara asked. Trying to persuade your boyfriend not to blow himself up? Actually, it was Hannah who was the fool. My love simply chose not to run away. And now look. Look at the pain the general caused. How many in Trivium suffer now because of her? There was only one monster here today. Chloe lifted her blade just under Mara's chin. Once more, move aside. Take your best shot, sweetheart. Mara remained as still as a grave, leaving her staff planted. Alex was fully expecting another fight to break out, and raised his fists, ready to spark up, until a low tone approached that wasn't so much heard as felt, reminding him of the subwoofer in his neighbor's souped-up Pinto across the street from his house. All present took notice as a high-pitched whine joined the vibration, like a kettle of battery acid were boiling over. Alex spun back to the pile of ash.
No, I know that feeling. It's the stones. They're still alive.
The magenta swirls in the Gehenna stones spun like ribbons in a blender, shaking them free of the soot. A fourth item was also revealed, a shiny, round object Alex recognized.
Hannah's belt buckle.
Look!
Fabian said, his voice jittery with terror, pointing a wilted finger at the circle of ash surrounding the mound. The jet-black refuse was alive, swirling, condensing into a cloud of darkness in the air above them, lifting the stones one at a time. As though controlled by a form of intelligence, the mass swooped over Chloe, who remained still, unwavering. Like a swarm of black wasps, the writhing shape dropped onto the Medolian.
Chloe!
Mara called.
Stop this! It isn't me!
Chloe screamed, unseen within the mass. The obsidian cloud collected and condensed on her, seeping in through her pores as she began to cackle, and her arms splayed out. The sounds of pain she initially released transitioned into shouts of pride.
Yes! I see now! I'm here! I'm not afraid!
The Gehenna stones were glowing white-hot, traversing her body, chattering like wind-up teeth as Chloe lifted into the air, surrounded by a storm of dread and abyss. The dark cyclone raged beneath her, jerking, contorting like sparks flying off a Tesla coil, wrenching her body in unison. With a gasp, she opened her eyes wide, then emitted a scream that began as her own, but became something much worse along the way. A rattling mixture of voices had taken over. Shadows of heat were exuded by her breath, as though a furnace were burning deep within her.
Yes, that's it,
the voice said.
Ugh, disgusting.
The sound coming out of Chloe reminded Alex of the alligators he saw on the side of the road in Florida during fishing trips with his grandpa. All angry hiss and gravel.
Let it begin,
the voice added. With a shout by Chloe, the ash that had seeped within her broke free of her skin and covered 3/4 of her body in swirling blackness. Long, dark blades extended out the rear of her elbows, locking into their final shape with a shrill crack as black gauntlets crystallized around her wrists and hands. The ash armor hardened until it appeared to Alex like steaming volcanic rock, coarse and sharp everywhere but where the Gehenna stones came to rest. Melu, faced forward, half exposed, was centered on her chest, while Raid and Ilam nestled within each shoulder's armor. The final touch of Chloe's transformation then appeared, a thin horn that forced its way from her skull, extending from her right temple, drawing back, its base growing to engulf her head. Chloe,
if that's what this thing still is,
hovered over the others, her gaze turned down, settling into her new body. Streaks of Eve surged through the cracks in her volcanic armor, and her skin like white-hot lava.
Ah, Malos, the purest known.
Her hands grazed over her armor.
We find it so balanced.
Isaiah took a few unnerved, cautious steps forward.
Chloe, don't give in. Don't use their power. Don't take what they're offering you. You're better than this, kid.
A midnight black finger of abrasive stone was waved at him.
Whatever do you mean, Isaiah? Use your eyes. Don't you recognize?
Her voice crawled further down the scale.
Your darling Chloe.
Isaiah shouted, his voice cracking with weakness.
You give her back!
Why is it so hard to accept what we are?
Chloe asked.
Because the creature before you sends a chill down your spine? Because what you feel makes you lose all hope? Did your lack of faith in her betray you like she always knew it would? We, however, chose to listen to the child. Chloe has taught us. We see now the strength in what you call balance. The vessel will be shared. We are the Wraith, Chloe. We are hope restored.
She played with her sword, as though handling it for the first time, and laughed to the trivium sky.
She is the champion we long desired. That which you cast aside.
Demon, if this is another one of your games, Mara bellowed.
Afraid, no.
The Nameless is not, and never will be again. Having gotten exactly what his greed deserved,
Chloe said.
the Celestial General's attack would have faded any unearthed creature in its wake. The Nameless failed to see what was obvious truth, and was therefore released. Now, we are forced to finish what he could not. The great silence must come.
Let me get this straight. Am I speaking with Chloe right now? Or the so-called brothers of Gehenna?
Isaiah asked.
'Cause if it's the second one, I have a lot more questions. Like a lot.
Names mean nothing to those who are many.
Chloe said.
We live until all do not. When one body of the congregation is destroyed, the movement will continue.
Black ooze crawled over her possessed hand and slid onto Chloe's cutlass, traveling up the blade. Once fully engulfed, it ignited, a black fire stinging Alex's retinas, as if he were staring at a torrid film negative. Chloe swung the blade, testing it, opening a slice in the ground. A clean line of atoms whisked from existence.
Fascinating,
She said, in her own little world.
Chloe, listen up.
Isaiah said.
The brothers are tricking you. Don't let them take over. We need to get whatever this stuff is off you.
You're joking, right?
She said, lifting a rock-encrusted eyebrow. Mara stepped closer. Even with this new strength, you can't kill us all, and you know it.
We don't need to kill you.
We just need you out of the way.
Chloe raised her sword and brought it down, generating a dark, brutal Medolian sphere. The energy was laced with abyss, creating a black mess of webbing powerful enough to toss everyone away and send a surge of pain through Alex's nervous system. He landed on a heap of debris and rolled over crumbled rock before stopping, feeling the effects of the dark sphere and hating being alive to experience it. No way he would be on his feet anytime soon. Neither would the others. Even Mara, who was closest to the attack, was down for a few counts. Meanwhile, with a laugh and a wave aimed directly at Alex, Chloe whispered,
Until next time.
Before disappearing in a shift of the same mind-numbing, negative film quality. No! Mara screamed, the first back on her feet, rousing the party. Move! We have to head her off. This is go time. What followed was a mad scramble. The Medolians each took a passenger. Alex was nabbed by Isaiah and transported via giant bubble back to the Trivium entry port, where they'd originally arrived. Stepping up to the huge golden rings, Isaiah took him by the shoulders, stared intensely into his eyes, and said,
Think of Gehenna. Think of the desert. The cave. Think of it now.
Next thing the teacher knew, he stepped through the ring and was back in a place he'd hoped to never see again. A tall canyon face loomed over them dead ahead, while an open valley of rolling hills stretched into the distance on the left. On Alex's right was the cave entrance that led to the stairs and the temple where he'd saved Casey. A few yards away, Bennett, Galinthia, and Fabian were running to catch up. Close by, on the other side of the tunnel, Felix and Mara landed. Much of the dig site's equipment remained standing outside the cave, and many tall work lamps were still operating. From over the hill opposite the canyon, there was a peaceful hum of a generator.
Guess the Raythians make a few exceptions for modern comforts.
As rushed as the team's exit from Trivium had been, the area was strangely calm, even with the 100 or so Raythian birds circling them in the sky, scared into flight upon their arrival. "No sign of Chloe," Mara said with a confused twist of her head. Charging down the tunnel, Felix shouted,
Come on! She must already be inside!
The others followed, with Mara quickly taking the lead to clear the way. Even from the rear, Alex could see firsthand just how good she was at killing Raythians. So good, in fact, none they encountered made a peep before, during, or after their deaths. Jumping over at least 3 rolling heads along the way, he and the team soon reached the dead stairs room, finding it oddly placid and empty. Through the doorway at the top of the 11 steps, there was a rousing call, and the raving chanted replies of hundreds of incensed desert riders. Alex stuck close to the group as Isaiah led them up the stairs.
Okay, stay calm. Just angry enough. I got this.
The first thing he spotted after stepping out of the entry tunnel was the giant statue of the winged beast with the huge mouth and fat legs on the plateau at the far end.
Still freaks me out.
The hundreds of Raythians inside were facing away, toward the high pulpit, where yet another sacrificial, pain-inducing ceremony was taking place. Somehow, no one, not even the Raythians' pet birds, had noticed the newcomers enter. Isaiah, finding something funny about the situation, chuckled and nudged Bennett with his elbow. He then tucked his fingers into his mouth and whistled so loudly it made Alex and about 80 Raythians nearby flinch, and sent the majority of the birds in the room to the air. A sea of white tattooed faces turned on them, many still holding their black stones high in their palms. The woman in white leading the ceremony atop the plateau paused her sermon, looking rightly confused. Surprisingly, no one said anything for a few seconds.
"So, this is the place?"
Isaiah asked eventually.
"Thought it might be bigger."
He then jammed his cane into the ground and spoke with an absurdly loud voice, which projected around the cave.
"Hiya! Leave!"
One of the Raythians on the side, a large male with dark, dirt-matted hair, roared and leapt at Isaiah, screaming his head off. Without flinching, Isaiah tapped his cane once, and the Raythian's head literally popped off, as he exploded into 1,000 bits, covering all his nearby brethren in him. The Raythians stared with wide, shocked eyes. Not even they had ever seen something so violent.
"Please,"
Isaiah said. His normal voice returned. After sharing some mystified glances, the Raythians did as requested. Alex and the others stepped aside as the crowd piled through the temple's exit as fast as possible, giving them their fair share of glares on the way out. The majority of the Raythian hawks and falcons followed suit, also seeming to glare, and within a few minutes the room was cleared.
I love how fucked up you can be sometimes, boss, Galinthia said. Should have killed them all, Mara added.
Oh, that's your solution to everything,
Isaiah said.
Now, obviously we beat Chloe here, which begs the question, if she's not here, where is she? What is she up to? Or do I want to know? Wait, of course I do. I'd love to know. That way it wouldn't be a surprise.
That thing we saw wasn't Chloe,
Fabian said, his brow drooping heavily.
No, but the bond between her and the brothers does seem to be healthier than it was with Joseph,
Isaiah said.
Either way, they took one of our own, and I won't stand for it.
To help plan a defense, Alex, Bennett, and Felix told the others what they knew of the tunnel system and the structure of the caves. Unanimously, it was agreed any defense should be centered at the entrance, as not to get lost or risk losing Chloe in the tunnels.
Only one way in and out. We can't shift directly into the temple, so I'm guessing she can't either,
Isaiah said. The team exited the temple and hiked back to the surface, always tense and ready, not knowing what might arrive at any moment. Stepping out of the entrance, they witnessed the last of the Raytheon horde disappearing into the canyon mouth, headed back toward the camp. Things then grew somewhat peaceful as a light breeze flowed over the valley. Halting with a sigh, Isaiah cleared his throat.
This is where we'll make our stand.
Galinthia made sure all her knives were in their proper sheaths, ready for throwing.
Can the people who have seen this stuff in action tell us what to expect? I couldn't get a read on how powerful Chloe's become.
Abyss is hard to pin down, or define,
Isaiah said.
It seems to be always changing and evolving, but we saw what the sword did. The brothers are pure emptiness. If they release their full essence, matter will expire. With Chloe's strength added to their own, I can't even imagine how powerful they've become. Sorry, I shouldn't say things like that. I meant, yay, we're going to win!
Mara was busy keeping watch over the desert.
She should be put down as soon as possible. No talking. No distractions. Go high. Not even this new Wraith Chloe, whatever she is, could survive without a head. Could she?
Perhaps. Perhaps there are other ways to go about this as well,
Isaiah suggested.
We can't take that chance, or get bogged down worrying about her. Chloe made her choices,
Mara said.
This is about everything and everyone, remember?
Last time I checked, that includes Chloe,
Isaiah said. Mara closed her eyes and lowered her head.
I don't care, Isaiah. I just want this done. I want to go home.
There was a moment of uneasy quiet, and Alex noticed everyone present was looking in different directions, lost in some form of contemplation. He then found himself staring at the sky, wondering where the stars had gone. Isaiah's lips clicked a couple of times, as though wanting to speak before he started.
You know, when I was watching Hannah fight...
Please don't,
Mara interrupted softly.
I had almost forgotten how to hold on, how to believe,
Isaiah continued.
She would have been ashamed of me, Then I saw her take it as far as it needed to go. She didn't wait, didn't hesitate, just did what needed to be done.
It was a waste,
Felix said, breaking the moment.
She didn't stop anything. All she did was trade Joseph for something even worse, and left us to deal with it.
You ungrateful imp. The earth would already be gone if not for her,
Mara said. Felix snarled back, revealing a long set of fangs.
So what? Nothing we've thrown at this thing works. If Chloe and the brothers are taking their time getting here, it means they're cooking up something new, which frankly scares the shit out of me, because I don't want to end up like Hannah.
He stepped away, out of the light of the lamps. No one moved to stop him.
I'll never think of her as fated,
Isaiah continued, as if nothing had happened.
She can't add to her story, no. But that doesn't mean we can't add to ours in her honor. She was the best I ever knew. We have to learn from her example.
Alex had a few things he wanted to say, and imagined the others did too, but they remained quiet. It wasn't long until Mara looked up into the sky.
Something's coming. Is this it?
There was a whooshing sound in the distance, which cut off sharply. Footsteps and a silhouette approached. Small red eyes dotted their face. A sword swung by their side, glistening with a fire of shadow and inverted light. Twisting cracks in their armor shone with the glow of molten fire. Wraith Chloe stepped into the light. A vile grin stretched across her face.
Waiting for us?
Took you a minute, Mara said. Stalling?
No. Merely ensuring things go our way.
The mistakes of the demon will not be repeated.
For the last time, take your shot or hand over the stones,
Mara said dully.
This ends now.
Wraith Chloe remained in place, grinning, then turned to Alex and Bennett, waiting on the side like second-string backups.
The humans. Amazing they've made it this far.
We find it shocking the two of you would fight for the likes of Isaiah and the Medolians.
Considering what they did.
What they continue to do.
After all, you might still be alive with your loved ones.
If they hadn't interfered.
Or had, perhaps, bothered to save you. Especially you, Alex. Poor
Alex.
Alex preemptively hated himself for asking.
What do you mean?
Bennett grabbed him by the arm. Don't play along.
You're not curious to know the truth, Mr. Hunter?
She asked.
You never wondered what happened that night?
Isaiah told you it was random chance, yes?
Or has he skirted the subject?
Hoping you wouldn't ask too many questions.
Don't listen, fellas.
Isaiah pleaded.
The brothers are master manipulators.
But Chloe continued.
Melu found Alex. And Alex found him.
It's why he stole the stone.
He was eager to take the power the brother offered.
It's why he kept it secret for so long. It felt too good to let go. Meanwhile, Melu took something in return.
Is that true? Bennett asked Alex, who wasn't sure of the answer, so he didn't deny it. He simply stammered, trying to process everything being said.
The rock took something from me?
The brothers are trying to confuse you. Don't listen,
Isaiah insisted. The wraith Chloe laughed.
Ha! Your choosing wasn't random at all. You were designed to be used as pets. Gophers for the Senate. Isaiah engineered your deaths because they needed you in order to maintain their precious treaty.
You're lying, Bennett said, now also playing along. That doesn't make sense. Why us?
Ask him,
Chloe answered quickly. Alex looked at Isaiah. Though the old man was shaking his head, his wrinkled face and gray eyes could tell no lie. At least some of what she was saying was true.
No, it wasn't like that,
Isaiah said.
Please, Alex, Bennett, we can't do this now.
No, this can't be the way things are. This can't be why my life is like this. This can't be why I went to hell.
The wrath was taking hold. Wrestling it down was like fighting to get a spinning car under control. Chloe pointed her sword at Isaiah.
We'll explain if he won't. Isaiah used the seeress to see the boy's past. She showed him the life of the first vessel, Mason. The only problem was, he was not like the others. There were no loved ones to have and hold. Mason would not have them, nor would they have him. Parents, dead. Younger sister, missing still to this day. In the whole of the boy's short, miserable life, there was no one Isaiah could use to help him. You see, he knew the Nameless's bond with the boy was far too permanent. Almost no way to remove the demon. Isaiah had one shot, and he found you two to take it. Two humans, destined to die on the same night. Two who knew the boy.
Alex was already feeling faint. His head was spinning.
Calm down. Everything will be fine. Calm down. Calm down!
This isn't going to work. I never knew that fucking kid, Bennett shouted, his aura of blue flickering.
You don't remember the recruitment table? In between deployments?
Chloe asked.
You volunteered at the local mall. Told to find patriotic teens to manipulate into service for their country. So many faces. So many people to convince of your superiority. We can see it all. Mason's memories are here with us. The boy looked up to you, Mr. Hunter. The proud soldier at the mall. The one man he could see himself being. You spoke with the boy about weapons and war and putting others to death. He loved to hear your tales of Iraq and Afghanistan and liberation. To hear of the cities and lives you destroyed. He loved to laugh with you. The only one he could laugh with. The only one with a sense of humor as sick as his. As well as a keen love of knights and maidens. Then, one day, you, just like all the rest in his life, were gone.
Chloe snickered for a moment, letting Bennett simmer with it.
Ringing a bell? Shy boy? Mad at life? Rather large?
Alex watched the realization wash across Bennett's face. The soldier knew exactly who Chloe was speaking of, which could only mean,
I knew Mason too.
but how?
Isaiah thought you two would be able to appeal to the human side of Joseph and get Mason to fight back, to free himself.
Chloe said.
It's a common practice in exorcisms. The living Eve within the host is usually the best weapon. People close to the afflicted can elicit powerful emotional responses to fight the infection. However, even if you had managed to find the nameless in time, it would not have done you any good. You see, this boy could not be reasoned with. Even the demon was sometimes shocked by the depths to which his thoughts sank. There was no soul there to save.
Alex felt the world closing in on him, tightening. He looked the possessed Midolian in the eye.
How did I know the boy?
How, indeed.
Chloe started.
There were many children in your neighborhood, weren't there? Kids would come and go over the years. Grandma and Grandpa always told you to be nice, didn't they? But do you remember a particularly quiet child? A particularly troubled home? Think, Mr. Barker.
Alex remembered. The house on the corner of his cul-de-sac. The one where the kid a few years younger than him lived until his family had to move away because of some problems.
Grandpa never told me exactly what happened and changed the subject whenever I brought it up.
Alex's whole life turned into a loop in his mind, with one frayed end tied directly to the other, spinning in a nauseating circle. Images appeared of games of kickball, tennis, and water balloons. He saw himself and the other kids from the neighborhood playing in the street on hot summer days. Looking down the block, he saw a little boy sitting on the curb, his hands between his legs, staring at a bug on the ground.
The bug was dead. They were always dead.
Alex saw himself speaking to the boy, who never said much in return, meaning he had to do all the talking himself. He saw himself telling the boy secrets, things like crushes he had on neighborhood girls, assuming the boy was too shy to ever tell anyone about it.
I remember him,
Alex said with a shudder.
the boy, Mason. I can see him.
Chloe smiled with stained black teeth.
Good. Are you kidding me?
Galinthia shouted.
Psychological warfare? Really? What are you, 5 dimes old?
She spoke to the team loud enough for Chloe's benefit.
Let's just kill her and be done with it. Look at the math. We're in the green. Perhaps not so green as you think.
Chloe held her sword high. A flare of negative, inverted light shot into the sky, and a horrible feeling plodded into Alex's stomach. A sound came like several steam engines in the distance, and he saw a cloud of smoke rising. There were shapes floating inside, bursts of steam and glowing orange mouths snapping open and closed. The shapes were long and skinny, swimming through the air with tendrils and arms.
Again? We just got done dealing with these guys.
The approaching creatures looked exactly like Archfiend, but oddly, Alex could find no glowing eyes. The demons swarmed the area and packed behind Chloe, swiftly and silently, stacking militaristically, baring their teeth and talons, ready to feed. At the same time, they appeared lifeless and dull, drooling acidic saliva to the ground. Their once luminous eyes were jet black, desolate, as lifeless as a great white shark's. These Archfiend didn't make noise like the others. None shouted their opinions or tried to seize temporary leadership. Alex then noticed the massive demons were lightly swaying in loose harmony. Chloe playfully struck one, who remained complacent, continuing to sway.
Beautiful, aren't they?
We've forged a new bond with the Ailey clan.
They see now the beauty of the brothers and the great peace to come.
You've made them slaves, Galinthia said.
We've made them helpful.
Alex was petrified, but Mara would not back down, offering a shrug.
Still not enough to get past us.
You are tough to please.
Very well.
Chloe called over her shoulder.
Bring it up.
With a lick of her lips, she smiled. There was commotion among the demons, shuffling sounds. A bundle was passed through their ranks. As it got closer, Alex saw it was a person, bound, with a hood over their face, making muffled sounds as they were carried forward. The demon at the front of the row took the figure in their claws, and Alex saw auburn hair he knew all too well, lit like fire in the lamplight.
No.
She screamed again, sounding even more like her.
Please? Please, no.
The Archfiend handed the woman to Chloe. Alex's cheeks felt like they were melting down his face. His neck tightened. His breath was caught inside his throat. His brain was pounding at his skull, boiling, trying to break out and get some air. Chloe then pulled the bag off. There were her dimples, the ones pressed deep into her face, giving her a permanent, warm smile, matching her affectionate soul. There were her green eyes, dark on the outside, pale in the scant light. Her smell was real. It was true. It wasn't a dream. She was here. She was screaming for help. They'd found Melissa.
You didn't,
Alex said, his knees weakening. He didn't bother reasoning his next moves. He was reacting. His body lashed out, trying to take her in his arms, to get her away from danger.
I have to get to her. I have to.
But someone grabbed him from behind and held him back.
No! Get off me!
He screamed.
No!
Felix said, close in his ear.
Hold on 1 second.
Fabian then joined him in restraining the teacher. Alex fought forward with desperation, his fists glowing white-hot.
Melissa!
He and his wife caught eyes, and she stared at Alex with only fright and disappointment. Any tiny flashes of joy she might have felt at the sight of him were wiped away before they could surface, replaced with terror. He didn't know what to say, or what he'd put her through. He didn't know if the man he'd beaten to a pulp outside their home was dead. He didn't even know if it truly was his home anymore. There was no way to convince her of the truth. Seeing her now hurt more than any of his fantasies of returning home could have predicted. She was in pain, tormented, because of him. Because years ago, he'd befriended a child who lived on his block.
Alexander?
She asked through tears.
Hi, sweetheart. Oh God, are you hurt? Did they hurt you?
Chloe grabbed Melissa by the back of the neck and lifted her to present her.
We see you two have met.
What the hell is this, Chloe?
Isaiah shouted.
This is way too low for you. This has gotta be the brothers. Don't let them do this.
She was probably just at home, watching TV. Or...
Alex kept straining for freedom. His mind had a singular intent: to reach her. Bennett had since moved in, now helping the others keep him in place.
Get off me!
Alex couldn't move an inch.
She's right there!
Let him come to her. This is his one true love, is it not?
Chloe said with a carefree whimsy.
Melu knows. He knows everything about Alexander James Barker.
What is happening?
Melissa shouted.
Something that has nothing to do with you. Don't worry. We'll figure it out.
Alex said.
I can help. You have to trust us. We're getting out of here. I can help.
He wanted to ask her about her day.
Who is us?
She screamed. The wrath was on its way to his surface, and Alex didn't want to fight it.
It's a long story.
He wanted to take her in his arms and kiss her warm lips. He missed them more than anything.
Nothing is going to happen to you. You hear me? Nothing. You're going back home tonight.
He wanted to ask about their daughter.
What makes you so sure of that?
Chloe asked.
It was you who brought this woman here tonight, Mr. Barker. Melu learned everything he needed from you when you took him. We must say, a connection as pure as yours and Melissa Klein Barker's is not often seen. You were lucky. But how many millions of others will never get to experience the same joy? Is that fair, Mr. Barker?
Isaiah roared.
Stop this, Chloe, or so help me.
Chloe interrupted.
What will you do? Will you risk the life of Mr. Barker's one and only? What does the greatest of the Medolians choose?
Your fight is with us. If you can't win, You can't win. No need to bring in an innocent,
Isaiah said, sounding mad as hell. As much as Alex didn't trust him at the moment, he had to believe the old Medolian would get his wife back to him safely.
Bring in an innocent?
Chloe shouted, jostling Melissa.
As you stand with the humans you yourself brought into this, all because you believed they would appeal to the vessel?
Chloe forced her hostage to the ground. Melissa was searching her surroundings, probably looking for clues that this wasn't actually real, or to find an exit route. Being unable to hold her and comfort her was destroying Alex. Screaming in anguish, he looked Bennett in the eye, hoping to break through his callous exterior just for once.
Help me,
Alex said. I am, Al, Bennett said.
How can you say that?
20 seconds. If you don't let us by, she will die in front of you,
Chloe said. Alex's heart hit the wall.
No! This is cowardly, not your style. She has nothing to do with this,
Mara said.
Chloe, why are you okay with this?
Time is ticking.
Wraith Chloe snickered.
What will it be?
Melissa was crying, shutting her eyes as though trying to wake up from the nightmare.
This isn't real. None of this is happening.
She's bargaining with the devil,
Chloe screeched.
We can beat her, like Galinthia said.
Alex pleaded.
Let's stop this, right now. Stop her. Come on.
He was looking at Mara and Isaiah, the strongest among them, who still wouldn't move.
Why won't you do anything?
He looked at Fabian and Felix. Their faces were cold, impassive. Alex finally found his partner's gaze.
Bennett, please don't let my wife die.
Bennett almost said a few things, his lips jittering, but didn't. His eyes darted to Chloe and Melissa, then back to Alex. Finally, he nodded and leaned into Alex's ear. Okay, when she reaches 1. The idea of waiting so late was torture, but Alex trusted Bennett. At least, he trusted the look in his eye. Turning to his wife, he said,
Don't worry, sweetheart. It will be okay.
Something deep inside told him he'd just lied.
we can work this out. Let the woman go back to her family,
Isaiah pleaded. Chloe cackled.
Only if you'll let us get in there and blow up the world.
Time was counting down, and Alex could not bear to lose Melissa again. When her eyes opened, they fixed on him, his bright green joys.
Are you really alive?
She asked. Alex's jaw trembled.
It's really me. I'm here. That's all that matters. Do you know about Patty? Patty. That's our daughter's name? Patty?
He smiled. It was perfect.
15 seconds,
Chloe said. Alex nodded at Melissa, trying to keep his composure, if only for her.
Is she strong? Like you?
Melissa almost let out a laugh.
Yes, but also overly cautious, like her dad.
Mara yelled at Chloe as if she were a toddler about to drop a vase.
If you don't stop this right now, you're going to be very sorry.
Chloe's mouth hung, as though she were considering it, then said,
10 seconds.
No! God! We move on 1? Why 1?
In a lifetime of feeling powerless, Alex had never felt more so. He looked back at Bennett to make sure their plan was a go. Bennett nodded. Alex readied his wrath and kept his gaze on Melissa.
Where have you been? They saw you get shot,
she said.
I know none of this makes any sense,
he said.
8 seconds.
Chloe interrupted.
We go on 1. Wait until 1.
Just let the woman go!
Isaiah screamed, taking a step forward. Chloe raised the sword blade to Melissa's neck, halting him.
5 seconds.
Alex, not knowing what else to do, focused on what was important. He looked his wife in the eye.
Melissa, I love you more than anything. I know, baby,
she said. Alex and Melissa began talking over one another, saying the same things more or less, while their eyes conveyed what their mouths couldn't. Exulting over their words, Chloe counted down the final seconds.
4, 3, 2.
We go on 1.
Alex let the wrath through, opening the floodgates, feeling his hands burn brighter than ever.
Let's do this!
Once more, Chloe took Melissa by the neck, as Bennett's grip on Alex loosened. The teacher was ready to spring.
Wait!
Isaiah screamed.
Fine. We'll do it.
Everything stopped. There was a pause. Alex and Bennett stood still. Chloe's smile was stricken away like a flower petal in an open palm and a savage wind.
You'll do it?
She asked.
Thank you! Thank God!
Alex was dumbfounded and looked to Bennett to make sure he wasn't crazy or hearing things.
Let her go, and we'll step aside,
Isaiah said.
Absolutely not!
Mara shouted.
We can't let this happen.
Isaiah had his hands up, slowly moving forward.
We can't. Don't worry, Chloe. We'll comply.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Isaiah.
The Wraith Chloe's sick smile returned.
Tempting. But allow us to end this debate.
Then it happened. With a twist of her hand, she did it. There was a slight snap, a sound as innocent as the clicking of a pen top, and Melissa's head drooped. The sudden sensation of slipping on ice and waiting to hit the ground enveloped Alex. He had no more sense of self or presence, as though he were a blank, weightless, meaningless thing. The lingering was filled with agony and uncertainty. He never expected to land again. Then, through the empty space came the same voices he'd heard while gazing at the smallest stone. Melu, brought back to life in his mind once more. Finally, his consciousness struck pavement, and everything went black.